Hello there, and welcome to the show. Tonight, we're peeling back the curtain on something that's as old as society itself, yet as current as your social media feed. Today, we're uncovering the subtle yet powerful strategies used to control large groups of people. Now that sounds a bit tinfoil hat, doesn't it? Like something your uncle would rant about after one too many eggnogs at Christmas. But the truth is, these aren't conspiracy theories. They are well-documented, historically proven methods of social engineering that are happening right under our noses every single day, often with our cheerful participation. Think of it like this. You wouldn't walk into a magic show believing everything you see is real, would you? You know there's misdirection, sleight of hand, and a whole lot of carefully crafted illusion. Well, society is the biggest magic show on Earth, and the tricks are far more sophisticated. Recognizing these tactics can help you think critically and resist manipulation. It's about learning to spot the strings before you start dancing to someone else's tune. It's not about becoming cynical. It's about becoming a more discerning, empowered member of the audience. So grab a beverage, get comfortable, and prepare to look at the world a little differently. We're going to dive into 10 of the most effective and frankly, most terrifying covert tactics used to control the masses. From the blaring headlines on the news to the quiet suggestions in advertising, these methods are everywhere. By the end of this, you'll be able to see the matrix, and hopefully, you'll be a little bit better at dodging the bullets. Let's get started. You're the puppet. Right, let's kick things off with a classic. The old reliable, the mac and cheese of mass manipulation propaganda. Now, when you hear that word, you probably picture those old-timey black and white posters with grim-faced soldiers pointing at you, saying something like, "Loose-lipped sink ships," or, "For the motherland, eat more cabbage." And yes, that's absolutely part of it. But to think propaganda is just a relic of wartime is like thinking the internet is only for looking at pictures of cats. It has evolved, my friends. It has become a sophisticated multi-billion-dollar industry. Modern propaganda isn't about blatant lies you can easily dismiss. Oh no, that would be far too simple. It's about the systematic dissemination of biased, misleading, or strategically incomplete information designed to shape public perception. It's the art of making an opinion feel like a fact. Think about a news channel that consistently frames one political party as heroic saviors and the other as incompetent buffoons. They're not necessarily making things up out of whole cloth, they're just carefully curating what you see, what you hear, and most importantly, how you feel about it. They'll use loaded language, cherry-picked statistics, and emotional anecdotes to build a narrative. For instance, instead of reporting, the economy saw a 0.5% dip in growth this quarter, they'll scream, "Economic apocalypse! Your job is next! Are you prepared to live in a ditch?" See the difference? One is information, the other is a panic attack in headline form. They're selling you a story, a pre-packaged reality, and they repeat it over and over again from every angle, until it seeps into the collective consciousness and becomes the common sense view. The goal is to create an echo chamber where a specific worldview is constantly reinforced, and dissenting opinions are not just wrong but are framed as dangerous, unpatriotic, or just plain stupid. They'll feature experts who, surprise, surprise, all happen to agree with the network's predetermined narrative. It's like a restaurant where the only thing on the menu is a manure sandwich, but the waiter, the chef, and all the other customers are raving about how delicious it is. After a while you start to think, well, maybe I do like manure sandwiches. And that is the insidious genius of modern propaganda. It doesn't just tell you what to think, it shapes the very framework of how you think. It sets the boundaries of acceptable debate. So, when you're consuming media, always ask yourself, what are they not telling me? Whose voice is missing from this story? What's the emotional takeaway they want me to have? Because more often than not, you're not just getting the news, you're getting a carefully crafted piece of theater. Alright, moving on to our next tactic, which is often propaganda's terrifying, over-caffeinated cousin fear-mongering. This is the psychological equivalent of screaming "fire" in a crowded theater just to get a better seat. It's the deliberate use of fear, through exaggeration or outright invention of threats, to manipulate public behavior and, crucially, to manufacture consent for things you would otherwise never, ever agree to. It's a beautifully simple and hideously effective two-step process. Step 1, make them terrified. Step 2, present yourself as the only one who can save them. Think about it. Are you worried about terrorists on every corner? A new, world-ending disease lurking in your doorknob? Economic collapse wiping out your savings by Tuesday? These fears, whether they have a basis in reality or not, are often amplified to a deafening roar by politicians and media outlets. Every news report becomes a horror story. Every statistic is presented in the most alarming way possible. A 1 in a million chance of this happening to you is reframed as "it could be you" tonight. The goal is to keep you in a constant state of low-grade panic. Why? Because a scared population is a compliant population. When people are afraid, their capacity for critical thought plummets. They stop thinking about abstract concepts like freedom, privacy, or long-term consequences. Their focus narrows to one thing: survival. And in that state of mind, they are incredibly willing to trade their liberties for a promise of security. Suddenly, giving up your personal data, accepting widespread surveillance, or supporting a war in a country you can't find on a map doesn't seem so bad, as long as it makes the scary thing go away. This tactic is a master class in emotional manipulation. It bypasses the rational brain and hits you right in the amygdala, the primal part that screams, "danger." It's why you see political ads that don't talk about policy, but instead show grainy footage of shadowy figures, while a deep voice warns you about the dangers of their opponent. They're not trying to win an argument. They're trying to trigger a flight-or-fight response and position themselves as the only safe cave to hide in. So, the next time you feel a wave of panic after watching a news segment or reading a headline, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this threat being presented proportionally? Who benefits from me being this afraid? Is the proposed solution a reasonable response, or is it a massive overreach that just happens to give someone a whole lot more power? Because fear is a powerful tool, and in the wrong hands, it's not used to protect you. It's used to control you. Now, for a tactic that's so deeply embedded in our lives, most of us don't even notice it's there. It's like the air we breathe or the Wi-Fi signal we desperately search for. I'm talking about social conditioning. This is the process of training individuals in a society to respond in a manner generally approved by the society and the peer groups within it. It's not about overt commands. It's about the subtle, pervasive pressure to conform to established norms, values, and beliefs. It's the reason you say "bless you" when someone sneezes, and the reason you feel a bit weird wearing a swimsuit to a board meeting. This conditioning starts the moment we're born. Our families, our schools, our religious institutions, and of course the media, all play a part in teaching us the rules of our culture. They teach us what is considered normal, what is successful, what is desirable, and what is taboo. Think of the classic American dream narrative. Go to college, get a good job, buy a house with a white picket fence, have 2.5 children, and accumulate a mountain of consumer goods. This isn't a natural human desire, it's a socially conditioned ideal. The power of this tactic lies in its invisibility. It doesn't feel like control because it manifests as our own desires and beliefs. We pursue these goals because we believe we want them, not because we were told to. The system works by rewarding conformity and punishing deviation. If you follow the script, you get social approval, pats on the back, and maybe a promotion. If you stray too far from the path, say, by questioning consumer culture or traditional family structures, you risk being labeled as weird, a failure, or a troublemaker. This is how entire populations can be guided to accept certain economic systems, political ideologies, or social hierarchies as natural or inevitable. It's how the idea that immense wealth for a few is a sign of a healthy society, rather than a symptom of systemic inequality, becomes mainstream thought. The system doesn't need to force you to participate. It just needs to make the alternative seem unthinkable, lonely, and strange. It builds an invisible fence around your mind, and most people will happily stay within its confines for their entire lives. So it's worth taking a moment to examine your own beliefs and desires. Ask yourself, where did this idea come from? Is this something I genuinely want, or is it something I've been taught to want? Who benefits from me believing this? Deconstructing your own social conditioning is one of the most challenging but liberating things you can do. It's about realizing that the normal way of doing things is just one option among many, and it might not be the one that's best for you, or for society as a whole. Let's talk about the art of misdirection, a tactic as useful for a stage magician as it is for a government. This is the strategy of distraction. In a world that's just saturated with information, the most valuable commodity is not money, not oil, but your attention. And if those in power can control what you pay attention to, they can effectively control the public discourse. The principle is simple. If you can keep the population obsessed with trivial, sensational, or emotionally charged but ultimately insignificant issues, they won't have the time or energy to focus on the things that actually matter. It's the old bread and circuses concept, updated for the 21st century. The Roman emperors kept the populace docile with free grain and spectacular gladiator games. Today, the circus is a 24/7, high-definition, multi-platform extravaganza. It's the latest celebrity scandal, the manufactured outrage over a coffee cup design, the endless, pointless debates between talking heads on cable news, or the new must-see reality show about impossibly wealthy people having minor disagreements. It's all shiny, loud, and utterly captivating. And while everyone is arguing about whether a pop star's new haircut is a cultural crime or a triumph of self-expression, what's happening in the background? Well, that's when unpopular legislation gets passed quietly in the dead of night. That's when corporate regulations are discreetly rolled back. That's when civil liberties are eroded, piece by piece, without anyone noticing. It's the political equivalent of a pickpocket who jingles a set of keys in your ear with one hand, while his other hand is gently removing your wallet. This isn't to say that pop culture or entertainment is inherently bad, of course not. But it becomes a tool of control when it's used systematically to divert public focus away from substantive issues. When the news cycle spends more time on a royal family's drama than it does on a climate change report that predicts catastrophic consequences, that's not an accident, it's a choice. It's a decision to feed the public a diet of sugary, addictive junk food, instead of the complex carbohydrates of real meaningful information. So the challenge for us is to be mindful of our media diet. Are we consuming a balanced meal of information, or are we just gorging on empty calories? When a massive, sensational story breaks, it's always worth asking, what else is happening in the world right now that isn't getting any coverage? What is this story distracting me from? Being aware of this tactic is the first step toward reclaiming your focus and paying attention to what truly deserves it. Divide and conquer, or as it's known in the Latin, it was perfected in divide et impera. This is one of the oldest and most brutally effective tricks in the Book of Power. The logic is devastatingly simple. A united population is strong and poses a threat to the established order. A population that is fractured, bickering, and suspicious of itself is weak, disorganized, and easy to control. If you can get people to fight each other, they won't have the time or unity to fight you. How does it work? By identifying and then exacerbating existing fault lines within a society. These can be based on anything: race, religion, class, political affiliation, geography, age, even something as silly as whether you prefer Star Wars or Star Trek. The architects of this strategy don't necessarily create the divisions. They just pour gasoline on the embers of difference until a raging fire of animosity erupts. They turn neighbors into enemies and countrymen into strangers. You see this constantly in political rhetoric and media narratives. They'll create an us and a them. They are the ones to blame for all your problems. They are lazy. They are trying to take your job. They are destroying our values. They don't belong here. This language is designed to foster resentment and tribalism. It encourages you to see a whole group of people not as individuals with their own hopes and fears, but as a monolithic, threatening other. The ultimate goal is to prevent solidarity. If you can convince working-class people of different races that they are each other's primary economic competition, they'll never unite to demand better wages and working conditions from the people who actually control the economy. If you can convince urban and rural populations that their values are fundamentally incompatible, they'll never join forces to challenge a political system that disenfranchises both of them. It's a brilliant, cynical shell game. So, when you hear rhetoric that paints a whole group of people with a single negative brush, be deeply skeptical. Ask yourself, who benefits from this division? Who profits from us hating each other? Is this person trying to solve a problem? Or are they just trying to point my anger at a convenient scapegoat? Recognizing that you're being pitted against your fellow citizens is the first step toward rejecting the game entirely and realizing that the people you're told to hate probably have a lot more in common with you than the powerful figures stoking the flames. Alright, let's pull back the curtain on a tactic that's a bit more heavy-handed but no less prevalent: censorship and information control. If propaganda is about shaping the narrative, censorship is about erasing any competing narratives altogether. It's the ultimate power move, controlling not just what people think, but what they are allowed to think about in the first place. It operates on a simple, chilling premise: an idea that is never heard can never take root. The most obvious form of this is direct, state-sponsored censorship. Think of countries that have a great firewall blocking access to international news sites, social media platforms, and any information deemed politically sensitive. This is the brute force approach, simply making it impossible, or at least very difficult, for citizens to access information that contradicts the official government line. It creates a hermetically sealed information bubble, where the state is the only source of truth. But censorship can be much more subtle and insidious in societies that pride themselves on free speech. It can take the form of deplatforming, where individuals with dissenting views are kicked off social media, or lose their publishing deals, effectively silencing them. It can be search engine algorithms that are tweaked to bury certain types of content and promote others, shaping what a user finds when they go looking for information. It's not that the information is illegal, it's just made incredibly difficult to find, a needle in a digital haystack. Another powerful form is self-censorship. When people see others being punished, shamed, or losing their jobs for expressing certain opinions, they learn to keep their own mouths shut. This creates a chilling effect where people become their own censors, afraid to voice any thought that might go against the prevailing orthodoxy, whether that orthodoxy is enforced by a government or by a powerful cultural mob. This is perhaps the most efficient form of control, as it outsources the work of suppression to the populace itself. The end result of all these forms of information control is the same: the maintenance of a specific, approved narrative. It narrows the Overton window, the range of ideas tolerated in public discourse, until only a very limited set of viewpoints are considered acceptable. So, it's crucial to actively seek out different perspectives, especially ones you might disagree with. Question why certain voices are amplified and others are silenced. Remember that access to a wide spectrum of information isn't just a privilege, it's a prerequisite for a free and thinking society. What you don't know can't hurt them, but it can absolutely devastate you. Let's venture now into the squishy, unpredictable, and highly exploitable realm of the human heart. Our next tactic is the use of potent emotional appeals. This is the strategy of bypassing your logical, rational brain entirely and making a direct beeline for your feelings. Why bother with tedious facts, complex data, and nuanced arguments when you can just make someone feel overwhelming pride, righteous anger, deep sympathy, or, crippling guilt? It's a shortcut to compliance, and it is used absolutely everywhere. Politicians are masters of this. Think of a campaign rally. It's rarely a detailed policy seminar. It's a carefully orchestrated emotional experience. There are the soaring patriotic songs, the waving flags, the heartwarming stories of hardworking families, and the tear-jerking anecdotes about national triumphs. All of this is designed to make you feel a powerful sense of belonging and national pride, to associate those warm, fuzzy feelings with the candidate on stage. You're not voting for a platform, you're voting for a feeling. The flip side of this is the appeal to negative emotions. An opponent isn't just someone with a different economic plan, they are a threat to your very way of life, someone who hates your country or despises your values. This is designed to provoke anger and fear, short-circuiting any rational consideration of their actual policies. Charity organizations do this too, with heart-wrenching images of suffering, not just to inform you of a problem, but to make you feel a pang of guilt so powerful that you reach for your wallet without a second thought. This tactic works because humans are emotional creatures. We often make decisions based on our gut feelings and then use logic to justify them afterward. Manipulators know this. They know that a powerful emotional story can be far more persuasive than a spreadsheet full of statistics. A single, vivid anecdote about one person's struggle can outweigh mountains of data about systemic issues. We connect with stories, not with abstractions. So the key to resisting this is to practice emotional awareness. When you find yourself having a strong emotional reaction to a piece of media or a speech, pause. Acknowledge the feeling, then ask, why am I feeling this? What specific words, images, or sounds are being used to make me feel this way? And most importantly, if I take the emotion out of it, what is the actual substance of the argument being made? Separating the emotional packaging from the logical product is a vital skill for navigating a world that is constantly trying to pull at your heartstrings to get into your head. Now for a tactic that is as subtle as it is powerful, the manipulation of language. George Orwell knew all about this. In his novel, he called it newspeak, a language designed to narrow the range of thought. The principle is this: if you can control the language people use, you can control the thoughts they are capable of having. It's about using euphemisms, jargon, and loaded terms to obscure truth, reframe reality, and make the unpalatable seem acceptable. Let's look at some modern examples. A corporation doesn't fire thousands of employees. It engages in right-sizing or workforce restructuring. Doesn't that sound so much more sterile and professional? It removes the human cost from the equation. Civilian casualties in a war are no longer dead people, they are collateral damage, an unfortunate but unavoidable consequence like a scuff mark on a shoe. A tax increase on the wealthy is rebranded as revenue enhancement, while a tax cut for corporations is sold as pro-growth reform. This is all by design. The goal is to sanitize reality. Words have emotional weight, and by carefully selecting words with less negative baggage, you can change the public's perception of an action without changing the action itself. It's a linguistic anesthetic. Enhanced interrogation techniques sounds like a sophisticated high-tech process, doesn't it? It certainly sounds a lot better than the simple, ugly word it was designed to replace: torture. Jargon is another fantastic tool for this. By using complex, technical, or bureaucratic language, you can make a topic seem so impenetrable that the average person simply gives up trying to understand it. They assume the experts must know what they're doing. When a financial report is filled with talk of collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps, it's designed to be confusing. It creates a barrier between those in the know and the general public, preventing scrutiny. So, listen carefully to the language used by people in power. Pay attention to euphemisms. When you hear a strange, new, clinical-sounding phrase, ask yourself, what are they talking about? What simple, clear word is this fancy term trying to hide? Translating this manipulated language back into plain English is like putting on the glasses in the movie. Suddenly you can see the bland, reassuring signs for what they really are: commands to obey, consume, and conform. And so is your email. Let's discuss a tactic that has exploded in the digital age, a method of control that would make the secret police of Old Green with envy. I'm talking about surveillance and monitoring. The idea is based on a concept called the panopticon, a prison designed so that a single guard can observe all the inmates without them knowing if they are being watched at any given moment. The result? The prisoners behave as if they are being watched. They begin to police their own behavior. Welcome to the digital panopticon. In the 21st century, we are all inmates, and we are all building our own prisons. Every time you use a search engine, like a post on social media, use a store's loyalty card, or simply carry your smartphone in your pocket, you are generating a stream of data. You are leaving a trail of digital breadcrumbs that reveals your habits, your purchases, your political beliefs, your social connections, and your physical location. Governments and corporations are collecting this data on an unimaginable scale. Officially, it's for our benefit, of course. It's to provide you with more relevant ads or to enhance your user experience, or the big one, for national security. And while it might be convenient to have your GPS predict your route to work, the implications are profoundly chilling. This mass collection of data creates a detailed profile of you, a profile that can be used to predict, influence, and control your behavior. The most powerful effect of this constant monitoring is the chilling effect it has on dissent and nonconformity. If you know that your online searches, your private messages, and your associations are being logged and analyzed, are you more or less likely to research a politically sensitive topic? Are you more or less likely to join a protest group or express an unpopular opinion online? The mere that you could be watched is enough to foster a culture of fear and compliance. You trim your own thoughts to fit within acceptable parameters. This creates a paradox. In a world where we have more tools than ever to communicate and express ourselves, we may become more afraid to do so authentically. The surveillance society doesn't need to knock down your door in the middle of the night if it can convince you to never say or do anything that would warrant it in the first place. So, be mindful of the digital footprint you leave. Advocate for privacy rights. Because a society where everyone is afraid to step out of line for fear of being watched is not a free society, it's a prison with invisible bars. And finally, we arrive at our 10th and perhaps most insidious tactic, the one that ties all the others together, the normalization of compliance. This is also known as the boiling frog principle. The story goes that if you drop a frog into a pot of boiling water, it will immediately jump out. But if you place it in a pot of lukewarm water and then gradually turn up the heat, the frog will not perceive the danger and will be cooked to death. This is a horrifying and thankfully biologically inaccurate metaphor for how societies can be led to accept conditions they would have once found intolerable. This tactic works by introducing radical changes in small, incremental steps. Each individual step seems minor, reasonable, or even necessary. A new security measure at the airport, a slight expansion of government surveillance powers to catch a specific type of criminal, a new community guideline on a social media platform. On its own, each change is too small to provoke a massive public outcry. It's just a minor inconvenience, a small price to pay for security or civility. But over time, these small steps add up. They create a new normal. The outrageous becomes routine. The emergency measure becomes permanent policy. The exception becomes the rule. Think about the powers and measures that were introduced as temporary responses to a crisis. How many of them are still with us, years or even decades later, now fully integrated into the fabric of our lives? We adapt, we get used to it. The baseline of what is considered normal shifts, slowly but surely. This gradualism is what makes it so effective. It disarms our natural alarm systems. There is no single moment of shocking change to rally against. Instead, it's a slow, creeping erosion of freedom, privacy, or rights. By the time you look around and realize the water is boiling, it feels too late to jump. Complaining about it makes you seem like an extremist, someone who can't adapt to the modern world. The new, more restrictive reality has been successfully normalized. This is why it's so important to have a long memory and to pay attention to the trajectory of changes. We must resist the creep of normalization. When a new policy or measure is introduced, we must ask not only, what does this do today, but also, what does this enable tomorrow? What precedent does this set? We must be the frog that notices the water is getting warmer and decides to jump out, no matter how comfortable it might seem at the moment. Because once compliance is normalized, the path to authoritarianism is a short and slippery one. Waking up in the Matrix. So there you have it. 10 of the most powerful and pervasive tactics used to shape our thoughts, herd our behaviors, and control the masses. From the overt shouts of propaganda and fear-mongering to the subtle whispers of social conditioning and manipulated language, these strategies form an invisible operating system that runs in the background of our society. It can feel overwhelming, even a little bit hopeless, to realize the extent to which these forces are at play in our daily lives. It's like taking the red pill and seeing the code for the first time. The world can suddenly look like a much colder, more calculated place. But here's the crucial thing. Awareness is the antidote. The primary goal of these tactics is for them to work without you noticing. They are at their most powerful when they are invisible. By simply learning to recognize them, you have already taken the first and most important step toward neutralizing their effect on you. You've switched on the lights in a dark room. You can now see the magician's hands, you can spot the strings on the puppet, and you can hear the faint hum of the machinery behind the curtain. So, the challenge I leave you with is this. Don't just go back to scrolling. Stay alert, question what you see, and don't let these tactics go unnoticed. When you see them in action, call them out, if only to yourself. Think critically about the information you consume and the emotional responses it's designed to elicit. Cultivate a healthy skepticism, not of everything, but of power and the narratives it promotes. By doing so, you reclaim your own mind, and that, in the end, is the only freedom that truly matters. Thanks for watching.